Neil here. Today I'm going to give you a demonstration of how to use Portainer to control Kubernetes environments out at the edge of the network. In this case, as if these are single node Kubernetes clusters on IT/OT gateways out in a factory. So here I have 4 Kubernetes environments. I have no inbound connectivity to these devices, but these devices have connectivity back to the Portainer instance that is hosted here. This would replicate a common configuration where Portainer may sit in the IT network of a organization, and or where edge devices are communicating back to a Portainer instance over the public internet, where the Portainer instance is either in the DMZ or there is a proxy in the DMZ forwarding communications back to the Portainer instance. So these 4 Kubernetes environments right now are just completely vanilla. They are micro K8s clusters, but there's no other configuration on them. So the very first thing we need to do is assign some kind of personality to them. And in Portainer speak, that means tags. And tags are just human text that we can create and assign, which helps us logically group or logically associate an identity to devices. So let's say we want to have a tag called site1 and a tag called site2. Then we can do so. And then we can come into our environments and we can say, well, actually, edge kube here is actually in site1. And we can say that kube2 is in site1. But 3 and 4 are actually in site2. So we just go and add these tags. Now I'm doing this manually. You can also do the same thing when you're doing auto onboarding, or when you're onboarding your Kubernetes clusters. You can also auto tag them and group them as part of the auto onboarding experience. But for the sake of this demo, I'm showing you them manually. So we've now assigned identities to these clusters. You can add multiple tags. You don't just have to have one tag like I have. That's just a simple demo. You can have multiple tags in there. So now we can come in and say we actually want to create some groups. Now these are just logical groups again. So we can say I want to create an edge group. And this one's going to be called site1. And here I can either statically add devices to groups, but in this case I want to do dynamic. And as you can see here, there's currently no devices in the group. And I can say I want to allow devices into the group if they have the tag match called site1. And as you can see here, we've got 2 devices. So I can add them. I can do the same thing. I can say site2, dynamic, and this time I want the site2. So you can see here's 3 and 4, add. And I can create another one that's called all sites. Again, it's dynamic. And now I want to say allow devices into this group if they have either site1 or site2 tags, add. And so you can see we now have 3 groups. Site1 has 2, site2 has 2, and all site has 4. Now we want to go and deploy some applications to these sites. So in my case here, I'm going to use GitOps to demonstrate deploying an application. So I can come up and say ignition site1, and I want to do the site1. I've already detected that it's Kubernetes here. We're going to use a Git repo, and the Git repo we're going to use happens to be this Portainer demo's GitOps demo. So I'm just going to grab that URL, put it into here. And the manifest path in this case is under kube ignition.yml. So kube ignition. Now just one thing here, in this ignition file you see here we're actually specifying a namespace. So I need to come back into Portainer and say use the namespace as specified from the manifest. If you weren't specifying a namespace here, then we'll auto deploy just into the default namespace. But in this case we want to. We're going to use GitOps updates, and we're going to have a 5-minute reconciliation loop. So if we make a change to the ignition YAML file in Git, within 5 minutes it'll be updated on all devices in the group. And so we're now going to say we can deploy this application to all devices concurrently, or we can actually have some kind of ramp up if we want. But in this case, we're just going to do all devices at once, and we're going to deploy. So here's ignition site 1. Within a few seconds, the devices should actually acknowledge that there is an application deployment pending. Here we go. And both of them have already deployed it. And now we can do the same thing for site 2. So we can say now ignition site 2. This is going to be site 2 Kubernetes repo in here, kube ignition, GitOps updates again and deploy. And this should go and deploy to site 2 as well. So it should take a few seconds. In the meantime, we'll just come back and we'll go to site 1 here. So you can see kube 1 here. We just click on this. We have to wait for the reverse connection to be established. And once that's established, we should be able to interactively manage this device. Again, even though we have no inbound access, we can interactively manage it. So here we have the ignition namespace that's been created automatically. We can come in here and we can see the ignition application. I can click on this and I can see here the ports. And so I can just click on the ignition port here and we should be able to, there's ignition gateway. So there's ignition up and running on this device. So that was pretty easy to get ignition running on these devices here. I'll come back and go to Edge Stacks again. And here, these two both running. Now let's say that I want to do something different this time. And I actually want to have MQTT. And I want them across all 4 of them. And it's Kubernetes again. We're going to choose manifest. And this time we have come back again here. We have an MQTT file here. So we're going to do the same thing. Kube MQTT. And do GitOps updates again. And we haven't deployed all devices at once. This time you'll see there's 4 of 4, whereas these were 2 of 2, 2 of 2. So we'll just have to wait for all 4 of them to deploy as well. Shouldn't take too long. There we go. So they've acknowledged and they've deployed. You can come back to this environment 1 again and come into namespaces. And we should now see Mosquito. And if I come to my applications, I can see Mosquito is here. And I can see the ports are exposed. Obviously, if I click it, it's not going to do anything because there's no UI for this, but this is deployed and running. Now we can do the exact same thing with more applications if we want. We could do the same thing. I'll come back again and say, I actually want to do another one. This one's called Node Red. And again, we'll do all sites, repo, same thing again. This time it's called Kube, Node Red. GitOps updates again and deploy. And now we should get Node Red running. So you see this is nice and easy to deploy your applications. You can just link them to the Git repo. We can make changes to Git, and when we make changes and commit the changes, Portainer reconciliation loop will detect that change and propagate it. I can come in here and you can see the environments, and you can come in and you can see the version that they're running, the commit ID. So we come back here. You can see here is the commit ID, so A5 and A5, so you can see that we're actually running the latest version of the commit for this repo. So that makes that nice and easy. With this Edge environment here, obviously you can now start to provide fine-grained access to it as well, so we can actually say, well, who can actually control and manage this Edge capability. So here I was logged in as the administrator, and as the administrator I have access to do anything, so I can deploy. But let's say that I actually want to have a user called Edge. I'm just going to create a user called Edge. So here's a new user. I can actually come into the Portainer settings, Edge Compute, and I can come down here and say, actually I want to give Edge Compute access to the user Edge, create access. And now this user Edge has access to manage these Edge devices, not the Portainer instance, I might add, so not the Portainer Docker instance. and also will not be able to access any of the administration functions outside of Edge Compute. So now if I log out and I log in as the Edge user, you can see they've got the 4 environments. I can see my Edge groups that are in use. I can see my Edge stacks that are in use. I can actually come in here and make changes to my Edge stack if I need to. Update the reconciliation frequency if I need to. I can come and see if I had any firmware update, or sorry, Portainer agent updates scheduled. But I can actually now manage these devices. And again, as a user, I can come into this environment. I can see the applications, and I can actually now start to troubleshoot them. So, example, ignition, I can come into ignition. I can choose the logs of the ignition container, or pod in this case, and I can actually see what is happening. So I can actually start to do some triage. If I needed to, I could even actually get a console. If the container supports a console function, you can say I want to start a console, and here I am inside the container console. Now again, this is as the Edge user, not as an administrator, and I can still do the same thing. I can deploy and manage applications anywhere. I'll just log back out and log in as the admin again. And so that makes it really, really simple to deploy. Now, if I want to change something here, I can say, actually, I want to remove node red. I can actually go and remove it from here. And Portainer will automatically, and I'll just switch and show you back to one of these devices. Within a period of time, see the node red namespace is terminating. And if I refresh this, eventually that namespace will go, because we are automatically deleting the application and then delete the namespace and clean up after ourselves at the same time. So it makes it really nice and simple to deploy, manage, update your Edge applications from within the one place across Kubernetes environments, no matter where they are deployed out there in the world. So this is Portainer's Edge stacks and Edge groups managing Kubernetes environments.